Bill, what are the big challenges organizations are facing right now?
A lot of the clients I'm working with, they're going through major transformations. They're spinning off a business or a complete strategic realignment, and they forget about culture. In fact, what they do is they get to the end of the process, and then they say, oh, now let's focus on culture.
Yeah.
But all that uncertainty, all that strain, that's actually what's going to create the culture.
Yeah.
So they need to focus on the culture before they even start that process.
I think one of the big differences and the big messages we want to get across to organizations is to recognize where culture exists. Because for a lot of people, they think, oh, culture exists across the organization. No, that's not correct, as you well know. It exists on teams, principally on teams. That's why in a hospital you can have different floors that are completely different cultures. In an organization you have different teams with completely different cultures.
Yeah, and I was actually in a program last week where we presented the culture map, which we'll explain in a moment, and asked them, where does your organization exist in that culture map? Which quadrant? And somebody put their hand and said, we're in all 4 quadrants. Because it depends on the leader of each team.
That's right.
So if an organization isn't intentional, if the senior leadership team isn't intentional about creating that culture, you just get this whole mishmash of cultures based on however that particular leader shows up in their last 8% moments.
Yeah, and so I think it's important for people to understand that there's 2 dimensions in this culture map. Courage, the ability to do difficult things skillfully, and connection, or psychological safety. And you need both.
Yeah, so on the top left quadrant, if you think of high courage but low connection, now you've got a very transactional environment where it's a focus on results over relationships. And toxic bad apples are allowed to exist because they get the results, even if they leave bodies in their way. So that's the top left.
Yeah, and bottom right would be family, which is high connection, psychological safety, but low courage. And so this is a nice culture, but it's unwilling to do those hard things, like name an inconvenience, have those tough conversations, make those unpopular decisions.
Yeah, and I love when you say, companies say, oh, we're a family culture, and you say, yeah, but we're not a family.
Well, because in families, you don't let go of your lowest performing family member, right?
You might want to sometimes.
Absolutely, I think we all have, but our organizations are not families. And so upper right-hand quadrant is where you have high connection and high courage, high connection and high courage. And so in these teams, you have people who, what characterizes is high accountability. So high belief and high accountability to the goals, but high care in how you get there. So I'm not going to give you horrible feedback. I'm going to give you honest feedback, but I'm going to deliver it in a way where you can hear it. Yeah,
and probably 3/4 of the clients that I work with, they're in that lower right-hand quadrant. They're in that family quadrant, nice culture. And that's because when organizations think of culture, especially right now when engagement and retention is so important, they focus on that connection. They focus on people feeling valued, people having a voice. And you absolutely need that, but they forget about the other pillar,
that's right,
which is courage.
Yeah. It's like that's the half of it. And the big thing is, there is a 8 to 10 year mega trend around a war for talent. There will be, just because of demographics, more really good jobs and good people. So organizations have to rethink what industry they're in. They're not in healthcare. They're not in automotive. They're in the people industry. They happen to do automotive. They happen to do healthcare. And if you have that mindset, all of a sudden you're like, no, culture matters maybe more than anything.